Hello everyone and welcome to our virtual workshop today. You're very welcome. I'm Niamh Lorden, I'm the Head of Marketing here at FlowForma. Today is going to be quite a practical session and hopefully we'll make it nice and interactive for you all. So our objective today is to help you understand how seamlessly you can digitize a construction process in under an hour. Okay, so next slide. Yes, so delighted to introduce our panelists today. So we have Olivia Bushe, who is our CEO here at FlowForma. Hi, Olivia.
Hi, Niamh. Hi, everyone.
And we also have Dave Shanley, who is one of our construction product specialists. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Niamh. Hi, everyone.
Great. So that's everyone. Okay, so we'll kick off with a very simple interactive poll. So this one's a bit of fun. So I know we have lots of people logging in today. So just wondering, where are you logging in from in the world? And we'll just take a few seconds for everyone to fill that out. Okay, so we might have a look at some of the results to see where people are joining from. Okay, most people are joining from Europe today and North America. So hi to everyone.
So good morning and good afternoon.
That's true. So guys, when you registered for this webinar, we did ask you a few questions. One of those was, what process did you want to see Dave build out in our session today? And as you can see here, incident management is the winner for today, with 38% of people suggesting that that was the one that they wanted to see built. I wasn't very surprised when I saw this. We did some research during the summer of about 200 construction executives and managers, and 97% of those people that we surveyed said that improving health and safety across their organizations was a #1 priority. So I wasn't surprised to see that at the top there. Olivia, any comments from you in terms of what people want to digitize?
No, incident management would be one we see a lot, Niamh, but we would also see onboarding quite a lot. So that would be a big one in the construction space for us, which is hinted at there with new joiner. But onboarding new suppliers and subcontractors would also be one that we would do a lot with construction companies.
Okay, great. And don't run away if you didn't select incident management, because Dave is going to run through, features and functionalities that apply to all of these processes today. Great. Okay, and this is the last poll from me, I promise. So we'd love to hear from everyone today. What's the biggest challenge that you're facing in your organization? And we'll give you a few seconds to fill that out. Some attendees have already indicated what their challenges are when they reached out to us about this webinar. So I know we have Milford on the line, and Milford is challenged with moving processes from paper to electronic. We also have Tara, who is challenged with easily customizing processes across different sites. So I'm sure there's lots of people that are facing similar challenges here today. Wow. So adopting new technology there, 67% are challenged with that, and 56% challenged with manual processes. Olivia or Dave, would you like to comment?
Yeah, you're definitely in the right place today if you're challenged with adoption and particularly manual processes. So, that's our specialty. We help you replace your paper and manual processes and digitize and automate them. So hopefully this webinar will be of use.
Great. Thanks for your participation in those polls. And then I'll hand over to Olivia.
Okay, thanks, Niamh. So welcome, everyone. I am excited to be here and thank you for joining us. I'm excited to see David work the FlowForma magic later on in the webinar and show you how fast and quick you can actually build your processes with FlowForma without the need for any coding tools. So you don't need to be a skilled developer or a member of the IT team. You can just, if you use Logic and you're the process owner, you can build your processes in FlowForma. So it's just to give you a little bit of background on FlowForma if you're new to us, and I know there's a lot of people here today that are new to FlowForma. So we specialize in building tools for non-developers. So really from inception, that's what FlowForma has been about. It's been about helping people digitize and automate their manual and paper processes, but without the need to code. So someone like myself who is not a technical developer could use FlowForma. So the process owners can use FlowForma. We are an award-winning process automation provider, and we have been recognized globally by analysts such as Forrester. We've had Microsoft awards. We have over 2,000 users globally. We've got clients all over the world: Singapore, North America, Ireland, Europe, and we have offices in Dublin, London, and recently added an office in New York City. So we are a 3-in-1 tool built to enable process users to be self-sufficient, and you can build unlimited workflows and have unlimited document generation with our tool. As I indicated before, it is a logical tool. You don't need to be able to code to use it. So the idea is that we would empower and enable the business users to become self-sufficient, so to build their processes, to automate them, digitize them, but then also be able to maintain them, so you don't need to pay for expensive IT services. We're putting the power into the hands of the people that know the processes best. So I just wanted to give you some examples to get your thoughts going on the different things that we could help you with of the typical processes that we would help construction clients in. So we are specialists in the construction sector, which means that a lot of our features we add to our product are specific for our clients and construction specific use cases they have. So here I've just given some examples of the many processes that we help our clients digitize and automate. So site visit requests, job safety forms, incident management, which we're looking at today, materials requisition, which is one that we see a lot. So hopefully these will resonate with many of you today. Just to give you one example of how we enable and empower our customers. There's lots of other customer reviews on the website, so we've just picked out one, so please go on and have a look in the case study library. But this is a testimonial from Carl Henderson, who is the digital engineering lead at Downer Group in New Zealand. They actually, before they bought FlowForma, they ran a test with us against Power Apps, because those were the two tools that it come down to they were looking at. And they found that it took them 4 weeks to build in Power Apps what it only took 1 week to build in FlowForma. And these were developers, so this was actually developers using the tool, even though business users can use it as well. They had developers, but they still chose FlowForma because they could go much faster with it. And there's a great quote here from Cara, which I think really indicates the depth and breadth of the FlowForma product, where it says the only limitation with FlowForma is your imagination. So FlowForma can handle everything from simple processes to medium and complex processes, and that's what Carl is getting at there with that quote. Just to give you examples of some of the companies we already work with, I'm sure that many of you recognise these names. They would be well-known construction companies across Ireland, the UK and North America. Bouygues, Coinford, Downer, who I mentioned Carl from, Sullivan Engineering in New York City. We've also worked with the A14, which is the largest road construction in the UK. So lots of large enterprises, smaller tier 2 contractors as well. So yeah, we're very familiar in this space now. So before we get into David showing you how to the workshop part of it, how to actually build your processes out, I just wanted to make you aware that we do have some pre-built templates, our process accelerators already there for you to use. So QA, check sheets, materials, requisition, those are all pre-built templates, which means that you can just take those and use them straight away and get up and running very quickly, which gives you a rapid time to value. So if any of those resonate with you, please get in touch with us after and we can give you the templates and a trial environment to get working on those. Okay, so I just want, I think this is our last interactive poll, but what outcome is most important to your organization when digitizing? So you've got 5 options there: improving safety, improve quality, save time, enhance customer experiences, or increase operational efficiency. So what outcome is most important to you and your organization when you are digitizing? So we'll give you a few minutes to answer that. So here are the results. Increase operational efficiencies, and 62%, so that's a clear winner, and save worker time. I'm not surprised, because given the economic uncertainty in the world at the moment, I think operational efficiencies has come back to be the top priority for lots of customers, and that's where a workflow tool and an automation tool can help you increase those operational efficiencies by being much more transparent, showing you where your process is, making sure your data is accurate, stopping you from having to re-enter data several times in the process. So that's definitely something we can help with, and given the current climate, I'm not surprised that that's the top answer there. So now I'm going to hand over to the expert in our world, which is David, and let him lead the show from here.
Thanks, Olivia. Okay, if you can let me know when you can see my screen there.
Yes, looks great,
Perfect.
David.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for the intro, Olivia. So the process we're going to build out today is the incident management process. Now, even though that was a winner, the functionality you're going to see in the build we do today is going to cover up other processes as well that were in the running, such as Works, Permit to Dig. So there's different ways that end users can interact with FlowForma. So end users being people that are actually creating forms or engaging with pre-existing forms. One of the ways is via your browser, and this is an example of a SharePoint team site dashboard that allows you to engage with forms from various different site collections throughout your tenancy. So you could have FlowForma installed in multiple site collections. You can then bring together all the various different forms here to engage with. So you can create a tile for each of the processes. Some might be from a finance site collection, some might be from HR. And then you can collate any pre-existing forms that require your attention here in this list view, this web part here. What you can also do as well to give a good holistic view of all the various different touch points that are relevant and the data that's collated. You can also take data captured from a process, say, such as the health and safety process here, and you can bring that into a Power BI dashboard here and embed it in your SharePoint team site. So that's one way that users can interface with FlowForma. You can also engage with FlowForma via the FlowForma Teams app, so via the Teams interface, and there's also a FlowForma mobile app for both iOS and Android, together with offline capabilities. And I'm going to play back a pre-existing check sheet process that I recorded on my mobile towards the end of the demonstration, and that should resonate with everybody, in particular for the likes of how it works and Permit to Dig. So I'm going to move across here into the tab where we're going to do our build from. This is the FlowForma Administrator's dashboard. This is where the person that goes into building out the process is going to go to do so. The process we're going to build out is our incident management here. So I'm just going to click on that tile to show you what the form looks like from an end user vantage point. So just to talk a little bit about the layout of the form, you can see process title is up here. I could also take a logo from the pre-existing logo set and embed that in the header portion here as well. In the gray step bar, the currently engaged in step is always in white. And you can see there's sequential steps following that: regulatory reporting, incident investigation, and incident closure. Now, these steps are moving sequentially from one to the other. You can also have steps running in parallel as well, should you wish. So if you've got parties that can engage concurrently in a process on their respective steps, you can do so. If I scroll down and take a look at some of the questions that we cover off here, you'll see for incident type, we've got checkbox. Now you'll notice here, if I select near miss and I select medical treatment, it's picking up that medical treatment has been chosen, and it's asking me for injury information. And what's happening here is we have what's called a question change rule firing here. And question change rules fire on the trigger question where the question control is updated. So if I go in and interact with this question control, my rule would fire. And that's called a question change rule. And they're used a lot to dynamically hide and show content whilst the user is engaging with the form. So for example, if I scroll down here, you'll see all the various different question types here: radio buttons, choices. We've got our geolocation here as well, so I can go and zoom in and I can pinpoint the location. We've got our date and time of incident. So loads of different question types here that align with all the various different types of data you need to capture. Multiple lines of text, single line of text here, repeating tables. So if I want to capture the timeline of the incident. And again, there's more question change rules firing here. So the one here is a hide show question rule. If witness statements required equals yes, we're now asked to input that information here. Report hazards, that's equal to yes, we're now asked to engage with that. So for example, if I go in here and I select, say, a hazard here, if I'm doing this on my mobile device, I'll be prompted to take a picture. I can embed that picture here. I can annotate over it and put in my comments, and continue adding to it should I wish. So question change rules fire on the trigger question where the question control is updated. So you go to the trigger question, you can apply your rule there. You also have step level rules. So if I were to scroll down here, and incidentally, there's a wet signature as well. Again, very useful for interactions on mobile devices. If you're on site, for example, a hotworks permit or a permit to dig, you might get the user to key in, put in their signature here using their finger or a stylus. So again, question change rules, fire on a trigger question. We also have step level rules. So step level rules fire when I click submit. So I can have step completed rules firing here. At this point in time, I'm committed to submitting my steps. I might, for example, use the step assign rule to assign the next step to the investigator here. I might be sending that individual an email and so on. I might be pushing information off into a database, into a native list. I might be generating a document. All those rules can fire when I'm clicking submit, and they're called step completed rules. We also have step saving rules. So if you've got a long running process that the user has to dip in and out of multiple times before they commit to submitting, you can have step saving rules fire. In this case here, you'll notice we've got a question change rule sitting here, report incident to regulatory body. As it sits at the moment by default, that is visible. So that step will be engaged with. But I've got a question change rule here called a hide show step rule. If report incident to regulatory body equals no, that step is gone. So we're going to click submit. I'm going to move it through to our incident investigation. And again, with our incident investigation, we can key in who's investigated by. I have my actions, I have my completed by, and my date completed here. And if I say yes, the investigation is completed and put in my wet signature here, I'm going to click submit and move it on to a final review step here where it's determined whether the incident is closed or not. Now, when I'm reviewing data captured on a previous step, I could push all the data through to this step and maybe make it read only, or I can give the owner of this step here permission to view step content submitted by previous step owners. So different ways you can do that, different ways you can propagate the information. It's based on how you design your process essentially. But in this case here, if I say no, the incident isn't closed, what's going to happen now is when I click submit, we're going to have step completed rules that are going to fire and are going to send it back to the incident investigation step. And on that step, we're going to embed the comments here down at the bottom for the investigator to investigate essentially. And that's what we're going to build out. So I'm going to close this off here. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go to create new process flow. So we're going to call this, just so I can pick this out easily, I'm going to just give it a name. So I'm going to go IM. IM is just a prefix that appears ahead of any numeric ID from any forms created from this process build. So this opens up Flow Designer. The Flow Designer is a 3-in-1 toolkit, essentially. It combines forms, workflow, and document generation capabilities in a single build interface. And when you're applying your business and workflow rules here, you're doing it with 100% no code. So what I'm going to do here is just to show you a feature. I'm going to toggle on form preview. This is something that people use quite a bit whilst they're getting used to using FlowForma. And I'm going to start by adding my steps. And now what I've done here is I actually have Notepad open, and I'm going to just copy paste in the steps here. So we're going to start off with our step title, incident details. I'm going to assign each step to myself. And you'll see as I'm building out here, you can see it's starting to preview it for me here. My next step is going to be my regulatory reporting. And I'm just copy pasting this in. I have all this in Notepad. If I was a 2-finger type, we'd be here for another few hours. Click OK. We're going to have our incident investigation. And finally, we're going to have our incident closure. So all I'm doing here is just creating the actual steps. We're going to add our questions or fields to each respective step now in a few moments. So with my steps in place, I'm going to select my initial step here, and I'm going to start adding my questions to that step. So the first thing we're going to do is we wanted to capture who is reporting this. So I'm going to go and add question. And you'll see here in the question editor all the various different question types that are available to me. There's a lot of depth here. We've got questions that align with native SharePoint data types, such as date and time. We have our own custom question types in place here too. That's native SharePoint list lookups there. Dynamic CRN integration, entity data management, SQL Server lookups. Loads to choose from. What we're going to select here is a person or group, and we're going to just paste through incident reported by. I'm going to set it to the current user. You can see it starting the preview here for me. Our incident type, we're going to have, I think it's 4 to choose from here. I'm going to make that a choice. As with all questions, I can make them mandatory. I can put in a tooltip description to the right of the question title and so on. I'm going to copy through our choice here. And we're going to make that, say, a drop-down. And you can see it layering up here. Now I'm going to toggle this off for the moment, but as you're building, you can see your form previewing for you here. So I'm going to save here. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to start layering this up. Now, I know for a fact that if incident type equals medical treatment, I need to capture what the injury information is. So all I'm doing here is I'm just adding my questions, all the questions I may or may not need. And I'm going to use business rules then to determine what gets displayed and when. So we've got our injury information, multiple lines of text. We have our emergency services. If they called, the answer to that is going to be yes or a no. I'll make that a yes/no question type. We've got our site. Where did this happen? Now, in this case here, I'm just going to key this in as a choice question. You could look up a native SharePoint list. You could look up information from an external system, from SQL Server. I'm just going to go to choice here. So site A and site B. Incident location, what I'm going to use here is a geolocation question using Google Maps. So I'm going to go in and paste this through, and I'm going to select location. I'll get location by default and include accuracy here as well. Date and time of incident. That's a date and time question. So I'm going to paste the title here. I'm going to go and select my date and time. Name of affected individual. I might, for example, in this instance here, I might make this text box width slightly larger. Incident description would be multiple lines of text. We're going to have our incident timeline. So our incident timeline is going to be a repeating table. And repeating tables are very easy to work with in FlowForma. So you have a repeating table parent question. And then you've got sub-questions. Each one is a column in the table. So I'm going to add my sub-questions here. So my sub-question is going to be date and time. And we're going to have activity, which is going to be comments. And that will be multiple lines of text. Next, we're going to ask, are witness statements required? So I'm going to ask that question next. That's going to be yes, no. In which case we're going to display witness statements. So that's going to be another repeating table. So most of the heavy lifting is done on this initial step here. Once we have that done, we can start looking at our business and workflow logic, which will be getting to that now in a couple of minutes. So witness statements, repeating table. I'm going to add my two sub-questions here. One is the name and the next is a file upload, where we're going to allow the user to upload the statement for each witness. We're nearly finished adding on our questions to our initial step. Once we've done that, there's only a handful of questions on our following steps, and then we're straight through to apply our business and our workflow logic. So as with a lot of tools that are out there, you can actually build out a form very, very quickly. The challenge that a lot of other platforms face is that when it comes to applying your business and workflow logic, that can take a lot longer. With FlowForma, it's very intuitive. The reason it's very intuitive is because it's a single build interface you're working from, and it's 100% no code. So what that means essentially is that as you're building out and you're applying your rules, you can see contextually where your rules sit and why they sit where they sit, which is very important. Here's our repeating table for hazards, and we're nearly there now on our first step. And this one is going to be one that's going to be of interest to our permit digs, to our incident management on site, hot works and so on as well. So in this one here, what I'm going to do is I am going to add a file upload, but this file upload question is going to be quite special. What this one is going to allow you to do is it's going to allow you on a mobile device to take a picture. So show image in preview. I can give a preview width in pixels. I can annotate over the image. So what that means essentially, if you're working on a mobile device, you will be prompted when you engage with this question, excuse me, to take a picture. And that will then be embedded in form. And our last one here, nearly at the end here, report incident to regulatory body. And we're going to be using this question here. If we want to, if the answer is no to this, we're going to hide our second step. So report incident to regulatory body is going to be a yes or a no. And then we're going to have a signature. So incident reported by, we have that there. So we're just going to add a signature. This will be a wet signature. Again, very useful for mobile engagements where you want the user to sign using their finger or a stylus. That's a wet signature question. And these are all of our questions on our initial step. And what we'll do before we start moving through the other steps is we'll start by applying our question change rules here. Now, what's a very useful exercise here is just to create a test form and take a look and see where you want your rules to fire. So incident reported by, I want to make that read only. Incident type, if medical treatment is chosen, I then want to see these two questions here. So I'm going to hide them by default. Similarly, if I move through here to witness statement required, if the answer is yes, I then want to see this table together with the file upload. Similarly, if report hazards is yes, I then want to see this table. And if report instance of regulatory body is equal to no, I then want to hide the regulatory reporting step. So I'm going to close this off again. I'm going to go in and start building out my logic. Incident reported by, I'm going to select that and make it read only. I know that if incident type is equal to medical treatment, I know if that condition is fulfilled, I want to then show injury information and emergency services calls. So I'm going to select these two and hide them. They're not needed at the outset. Trigger point to determine whether they're required is here. And here's where I apply my first question change rule. If I go to my add rules, you see all the rule categories that are available to you. You've got workflow control rules, which you're going to use 60, 70% of the time. You've all these data integration rules. A lot to choose from here. A lot of depth, communications, SharePoint actions, and so on. So what I'm going to use here is a hide show question rule. And my condition is, I know, if I have my conditions, I know if I drill down into my first step, if incident type contains in this instance, and I paste this through, if it contains medical treatment, if that condition is fulfilled, I want to show, again drilling down, I want to show injury information, and I want to show emergency services called. And what I like to do here as well is I like to copy and paste through here the condition. So what that gives you is, and let's just test that out. And again, it's very good agile tool. You can test as you build, make your changes very iterative, very fast. And that's something that helps a lot with end user adoption because there we have injury information, emergency services called. That's our first rule of firing, as expected. If I go down here to my, let's see, witness statements is required. I'm going to hide the repeating table of witnesses statements. And I'm going to go to my trigger point here, add rules, hide show question, edit conditions, drill down. If witness statements required equals yes. Simple business logic, 100% no code. If that condition is fulfilled, I want to show my witness statements. Similarly, hazards, the answer is yes. I want to show the table for hazards. I'm hiding the table for hazards because it may not be needed. Again, I'm on my trigger question, add rules, hide show question, and again, into my conditions. So you can get into the rhythm of building with FlowForma very, very quickly. So I can go in here. I know if report hazards equals to yes, as simple as that. All I need to do then is just show the repeating hazards table, which I've hidden by default. One more rule I want to apply here. If report incident to regulatory body is equal to no, I want to hide the regulatory reporting step. So this time I'm going to go add rules, and this time it's a hide show step rule. Edit conditions. Drill down. Equal to no. Again, we'll just copy. I want to hide the second step. And again, you can do a quick test, make sure everything is behaving as it should. If we scroll down through and we take a look at our report hazards, there's our table. Now you'll notice here we've got a regulatory reporting step that will be engaged with unless I say no. Now it's gone. So we know all our rules are behaving as they should. My wet signature here. I'm going to close this out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move through to my regulatory reporting step here and very quickly throw in a few questions here. So we're going to have regulatory body notified. So the rules we're focusing on at the outset here are question change rules, where you go to the trigger question where the question control is updated. Or then we're going to look at some step level rules. What we're going to do is on incident closure, we're going to pass it back to the first step if the incident needs to be reinvestigated. So we're now on to incident investigation. This one's another table. Let's just capture who's investigating this as well. I'm going to add this individual here. That's a person or group. I'm going to set it to the current user. And as I did in the first step here, I'm going to make it read only because I don't want the user to edit that field. And then I'm going to add my table here. So this is going to be a repeating table called actions. So these are actions that need to be done on the back of the investigation. So we're going to have an action first. And this is a dynamic table. So I'm going to go add sub question here, which means the user can add and remove rows. So we're going to have my action here. I'll leave that as single line of text for the moment. Who's going to complete this action? And the date on which it's completed. Lots of other things you can do here with these tables. I'm going to go date completed here. It's going to be a date and time, but we're just going to select the date in this instance. We don't need the time. And then we're going to have a confirmation that this investigation has indeed been completed. That's just going to be a yes, no. And what we could do here, for example, is incident investigation completed, yes, no. We could throw in our signature underneath, a wet signature, or we could hide that and make it visible if incident investigation completed equals yes. So let's just do that. And then we're going to move through to our incident closure. And we're going to apply some step level rules. So we'll hide signature. Trigger point here, incident investigation completed. If that's equal to yes, we're going to show the signature. Edit conditions. Drill down. That equals yes. That condition is fulfilled. I'm going to show signature. And as with all the rule conditions here, I could have a combination of rules. I could have group conditions, but also my actions. I could have multiple actions. I could be showing a whole block of questions, but I could also be hiding other questions. I could be enabling, disabling question controls here as well. Now, the reason that FlowForma excels in process automation space is because it's a single interface. And what that means essentially is when I'm looking back over a build or indeed somebody else's, it's very easy to see where your rules sit and why. So if I'm looking through this and I'm looking at my question change rules, if I select incident reported by, it defaults to question summary. If I select incident type, it defaults to my defined rules. So I can see very quickly where my rules are and why they sit where they are. So that's really, really important. So I can go in and I can edit the rule from here, see a rule summary, disable the rule from here, and so on. So we're just on our final step here, incident close. And we know in this one here that if the incident is not closed, we want to send it back to the previous step. So I'm going to make this a yes, no question. I'm going to add comments directly underneath it. And these comments are going to be hidden by default. Click save. My trigger point is here. This is our last question change rule here. Actually, yeah, it is. So if I go incident close, if that's equal to yes, that's fine. If it's equal to no, I want to show comments. So add rules, hide show question, edit conditions, drill down, incident closed equals to no. If that condition is met, it's at that point that I want to show the comments. And again, you can test all these very quickly. What we want to do next is we want to look to send it back to the previous step if incident close equals no. And we want to embed these comments on the previous step. So again, it's an agile tool. Because it's an agile tool, it means you can make these changes. The process owners can make these changes to refinements to the build very, very quickly. And that's really important when it comes to the adoption of new technology. A lot of the time, with a lot of systems that are out there, they're too complex for process owners to build with. It ends up in the lap of IT. And when IT make the changes, it could be 3-6 months later. You have that disconnect. You know, the process it has changed over time. So I'm going to go into my incident investigation here. I'm going to add comments. And these are going to be the incident closure comments should it pass back. That's going to be multiple lines of text. So with these ones here, I'm going to hide them. I'm going to make them read only. And now we're going to apply some step level rules. So we're at step level here is distinct from question change. So at step level, I'm going to go to add rules. I'm going to use a passback rule here. I'm going to go into edit my conditions. I'm going to drill down, and I'm going to go if incident closed equals no. If that condition is met, I'm going to pass it back to this step here, incident investigation. But what I want to do as well is I also want to now make the comments visible on the step we're passing back to. And again, that's governed by the same condition. So again, if I drill down here, if incident closed equals no, that condition is met. I'm going to go and show comments that are currently hidden on the initial step. They'll still remain read-only, but they'll now be visible. Last thing I want to do is set question value rule. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy the comments back to my target comments here. And there are the comments that are going to be sent back from the incident closure step here. And you'll notice as well that you're at step level. The events are completing, starting, and saving. Completing is when the user clicks submit. Starting is starting a step. Saving is when you click save. Now what I can do as well here, it's always worthwhile doing as well, is including separators. So separator is a graphical representation on the step. So for example, if I go into my initial step here, you'll see I might want to denote a section. So for example, incident timeline, for example here, maybe I want to actually put a separator in for that. And again, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go incident, I think it's called incident description. And I'm going to, or incident timeline rather, I'm going to go and I'm going to add a separator for that information here. So I'm on my first step, I'm going to go in and add my separator. And all that is a graphical representation. Very useful for denoting sections and parting information as well. So if I go here, I can paste that in here. I can make that bold. I'll give it a color. I'll leave it white. And that's my separator in place. But there's lots more you can do here. You can embed links, images, and so on. So it's all about imparting information, having that information kind of front and center for the end user to interact with. So that means essentially you can create a very, very pleasing, aesthetically pleasing form. And obviously that's something as well that helps with end user adoption. If I go in here, you can see I've got our incident timeline here. Might be better in a slightly darker color. But again, we can see all our rules firing here and everything behaving as it should. I'm just going to close out of here for the moment. There's a few areas that we haven't covered off here that I'm going to touch on very, very quickly. One is around the generation of documents. So not only with FlowForma do you get unlimited process creation, you also have unlimited generate document capabilities. So generated documents essentially allows you to create a document in Word based on a template, and that document will be populated with values captured from the form. And all you have to do in Word, once you have the FlowForma plugin installed, is position in the Word document the placeholders that you want to have populated with content. And what you can also do here is apply rules to that generated document. And that means that the document will expand or contract depending on the instance in which it's created. So for example, there's a rule here. If I look at in the rules tab, you'll see display selected section when this condition is true. What that means is that if that condition is not fulfilled in that instance in which that document is generated, that content will be removed from the generated document and the document will contract to reflect that. So all you're doing essentially is once you upload your document template associated with a specific process, all you're doing is going in and you are deciding where you want a cursor position to pull through your placeholder or your token is going to get populated. So if I, for example, pull in the name title here, I just cursor position and then pull in the answer here. And you can build out your document here. And that's very, very useful for a lot of processes, hot work permits, permits to dig, where you do need maybe a PDF record of the process that's been completed. That might be used on site. It might also be routed through to a predefined document library for regulatory requirements and so on. But it's the speed at which you can build that out as well is key and integral to a lot of processes. What you can also do as well, and again, very useful for hot work permits, permits to dig and so on, is the ability to use Engage. So FlowForma Engage allows you to bring third parties into your process using anonymous access or secure access. Anonymous access is typically the route that users take with this, because there's no FlowForma end user overhead. So users can engage with a single step external form, and that information can get fed through into the internal process then. So it's something that's very, very useful for a lot of on-site processes where you might have multiple parties going in and engaging with it. Also as well for new suppliers and so on, onboarding of new employees as well, where maybe the initial step or the second step is one where you gather this information from the external party using anonymous access, which gets fed through into the internal process. What I'd like to show you now very quickly as well is, just going to close this out. Actually, let's just play this through end to end. Very, very quickly. So, you know, building out forms an awful lot of the time, it's going to be, you know, this initial step tends to be the one that you do most of the heavy lifting, where you're gathering a lot of the information. But you can see here, all our rules are firing. Got our geolocation, our date and time. Everything is behaving as it should. And this is a process that's been built out in 40 odd minutes. So I could click submit. When I click submit, I could be assigned the next step to an individual, sending them an email. I can go in, put in all my actions, say it's completed. Now it displays my wet signature because I've said the investigation is complete. I can click submit, moves through for closure. And at this step, we know that if I review it and I'm not happy, I can say no. And I can then question change rule firing here to show comments. When I click submit, it's going to pass it back to the previous step, and it's going to embed on that step the comments here for the investigator to continue the investigation with. And that is how quickly you can build with FlowForma. It's a very intuitive tool to use. But what's very, very important is that when you do build out a process, it's very easy to go in and manage and maintain that process going forward. What I'd like to show you very quickly as well is under process performance. So process performance basically allows you to have a visual representation of how all forms are performing relative to a predefined service level agreements. You can set these at step level within a process, and you can go in then as the administrator, and you go in and you can automatically reassign forms to the next available individual on an ad hoc basis if you see, for example, with the fire safety, that it's been delayed. So I can go in any one of these and I can reassign that. What you can also do as well is you can actually wire that into the actual process build as well. So you can deploy what's called work items that can be built into the process design. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to automatically reassign it to the next available individual, but also send alerts at predefined times until a process has been completed by that step owner. So it's not just about the ease at which you can build out a process, it's the importance that we place as well around managing and maintaining any forms that are created from that and ensuring that bottlenecks are not an issue. What I'd like to show you very quickly now before I wrap up my segment here is I want to go through and I want to show you what the mobile looks like. So this is just recorded from my own mobile of the, see if this pops open for me here. I'll take it from the start. And again, for hot works permitted digs, this is going to resonate. So it's the mobile app here. This is just kind of generic check sheet, but you're going to see some of the functionality that we've already had in our build. So this one here, if I select other, that's the question change rule firing. It's asking me if it's other, show other. I've got my geolocation here as well. And I've got a table structure coming up now in the check sheet. And this one is actually a fixed table as opposed to a dynamic table, which means essentially that the user would have to engage in each row, which would be the case in a lot of check sheet processes. I'm prompted to take a picture. I can take a picture with my mobile. That will then in turn be embedded into the table, and I can actually annotate over that and mark off my comments. And this is an actual recording of this mobile form on my iPhone. And again, a lot of the time people engage with mobile as well, would use tablets too. And it's a two-step process. So once I click submit here, it's going to go through to a supervisor for review and approval. And you can see here, there's multiple rows I need to engage with to get my wet signature here. And then I'm going to submit that. So the supervisor could receive an email. They could also just keep an eye on their forms, wait on my input. And once they click on the link there, it'll take them through to their respective step, which is here now in a moment. And just see here, if I click on my check sheet 482, open that up, I'm now in the supervisor step. I can then click on the previous step, review the content submitted, and make a decision as to whether or not I'm going to approve. So as with our build there, I might say no, and I might decide to pass that back to the previous step and request an amendment, or in this case here, approve. And that's it built, folks. And I hope you found it of benefit. Again, just to give you a sense as to how quickly you can build with FlowForma and how agile it is to build.
Thanks, Dave. That was great. Hopefully
No problem.
everyone found that informative. Do we want to skip on to questions? I know we're coming up to the end of our hour together. So a lot of questions have been coming in. Dave, I might have to get you to answer some of these after the webinar today.
Yeah, sure.
But first one here is from Alan. So Alan is saying that he has a lot of processes that are managed on paper, and he just doesn't really know where to start and how to figure out what processes to prioritize. I might give that question to Olivia. Olivia, if you could answer that for Alan.
Yeah, so I think the place to start is where you have the biggest pains, Alan. So think about which process would have the biggest impact for your organization. So, you know, think about where your biggest pain is and what needs solved. It's really good if the first process is rolled out and has high adoption, because that can make a big difference across your organization, and then you get buy-in. So you get buy-in if you can highlight the benefits that it brings. So that's why I would think about where the biggest pain is and see if we can get something up and running quickly to address that. Now, I wouldn't spend lots of time making it perfect. I mean, the whole point of the FlowForma tool is that you can roll the process out and then tweak it. So you could set it up in a trial test environment, roll it out to a few people, get feedback on it, tweak it, and then roll it out again. So I would pick, if you can pick something that, you know, has large impact but isn't overly complex to get buy-in for the first process, that's what I would recommend.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Olivia. And I think my favorite question is in from Carlin. I'll give this one to you, Dave, but Carlin is explaining on chat that their processes are constantly changing and adapting, and can a tool like FlowForma accommodate regular changes like that?
100%. Yeah, it's an agile tool. It's all about being able to make these changes and refinements immediately, as opposed to traditionally what happens, whereby it gets farmed out to IT to make the changes, and they get back maybe 3 months down the line, and you've had that disconnect. So that's what FlowForma is all about. It's all about making the changes immediately to reflect any changes in the process.
Great. Thanks for that question, Carlin. Another one for you, Olivia. This one is from Marissa, and she's asking, how quickly do FlowForma customers usually see a return on investment? I know it's probably a difficult one to generalize, but if you could give any insights on that, that would be great.
Yeah, that's a great question, because it is something that's quite unique to FlowForma in that it's rapid time to value. So over about 4 weeks is what I would usually say. Within about 4 weeks, they can get their processes up and running and live. And I know there's more detail on that in the website around our Sure Start onboarding program, which includes 2 days of training. And then we actually handhold you through getting the first process live. So we, to help you step by step get that live. So we stay with you until that's done. And that usually takes about 4 weeks, Neve.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that, Olivia. And we probably have time for one more. So Dave, I'll send this one your way. But Matt is explaining in chat that They have a lot of people who are working on sites and they're in remote locations. And would they be able to access processes on FlowForma?
100%. So the recording you saw there was from my iPhone. So FlowForma is mobile enabled for both iOS and Android, and also has offline capabilities. So if you don't have connectivity, any data you input into your form will be cached on your device and then will be uploaded once you have connectivity restored. So 100% yes.
Perfect. Okay. So we haven't managed to answer everyone's questions, but we'll endeavour to get back to you as soon as possible. So I'd like to thank everyone for their participation today. To all our attendees, thanks for sending in your questions, engaging in the polls. Big thank you to Olivia and David and Ursula for organising this, especially you, David, after that long demonstration. It's not easy to do that in a live environment.
Very impressive to get it all done within the time, David.
Yeah,
well done.
That's what FlowForma is all about.
And then for everyone on the call, if you want to discuss your challenges that you're facing and to figure out how FlowForma can address those, please reach out to us. So if you pop onto our website at www.flowforma.com, go to our Getting Started area, and from there you can ask us for a one-to-one call, you can book a workshop, or you can book a 14-day trial with us. So lots of different options. So thanks everyone for your time today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks everyone. Bye now.
Thanks everyone. Bye.